A very warm welcome, everyone. My name is Michelle de Klerk, and I'm the founder of the Women's Chapter. We're delighted to have you here with us this morning for an installment of our Women-Led Wonder Series. We have the amazing Tonya Kidd-Beggs here with us today.
Why have you got, so
spotlight
60
you there,
to 80.
Also, just a reminder to everyone who's coming on, please can you mute your sound? There are a few people who still haven't. We want to try and minimize as much background noise as possible. So as I was saying, our Women-Led Wonder Series is an opportunity for our members to really share their stories with our communities and give us an insight into how they've got to where they have, building the businesses that they have or drive. And I had a pre-chat with Tonya earlier this week, and I think I wrote about it on LinkedIn and in our newsletter, but I was completely blown away by your story, your passion, and how much you've achieved in such a short amount of time with your brand. So huge congratulations. I'm a massive fan. I was also saying I've worn the same fragrance for the last 15 years. And I was very kindly sent some stories by Tonya and the team, and I'm an absolute convert. So thank you so much. And it's really pleasant to be able to discover something new and special like that you can wear on a daily basis. So I'm reminded of you each day that I wear it, and I will be even more so now with your amazing story. So just a few house rules, everyone. Please do keep your sound on mute, as I've said before, to try and minimize background noise. We're recording this, so you will be sent this afterwards. If you've got questions, please pop them in the chat. This will be an interactive conversation, and if you've popped something in that's relevant to what we're talking about at the time, I'll integrate the question. Otherwise, we will definitely have some time at the end. So without further ado, Tonya, I would like to hand over to you to give us a little bit kind of a synopsis, I guess, of how you got to where you are now to be the founder of Stories.
Yeah, so hi everybody, and it's lovely that you can all join us this morning. And my name is Tonya, and I am the founder and the creative director of Stories Parfums. So a little bit of a synopsis of it is really the brand is only 2 years old, and in October past. I only started working with fragrances 5 years ago. I was full-time mum. I have 4 kids, and I had chose to be a stay-at-home mum up until 5 years ago. So that in itself really started because I wanted to find a new hobby, and it led me to creating a fragrance taking me to the south of France and to Grasse, which is the hub of the fragrance world. And that was where I just wanted to start to do a hobby. But then what actually happened to me was so significant when I was in Grasse in the south of France, that I had such a passion that I wanted to share it with people. And then the brand began. So the brand only was birthed because of my passion. And I actually I had nothing to do with the industry before. It was completely new to me. And then 2 years later, 5 years later, actually, since I was in Grasse, that a brand has been born.
Wow. Well, I mean, Tonya, I think for me, the first observation is that you must be incredibly tenacious, because I think, the beauty and wellness industry, and particularly the perfume industry, it's old, and I'm guessing everybody knows everybody. And I mean, how did you get somebody to open the door to you?
Yes.
This question.
So it was, it's funny, it's a bit of a funny journey, to be honest with you. I actually, if I tell you a little bit how I got there, I ended up actually just deciding, as I said, I wanted to do a hobby. And I decided to go to the south of France, and there's loads of perfumeries there because it's the hub of the fragrance world, or hub of the fragrance world, probably in Europe, maybe worldwide. But what took me there was this hobby. I actually then began to create fragrances for myself. But I had such a significant, I had trauma in my life when I was 12. So prior to that, I had no memories of my childhood. So what actually happened when I was there, when I started working with fragrances, it had the power to connect me to my childhood memories that were overshadowed. So with the trauma. So I left with this absolute passion going, I need to connect people to their own story. I need to connect people to fragrances in the same way that I had connected with fragrances. So sitting on the plane on the way home from Grasse, I decided I wanted to have a brand. I wanted to have a fragrance house. I was very aware that I was competing with a mass industry that has been there for many, many years. But I had such a passion and a fire and a vision in my gut that I literally just went with my creations and went to London. I'm from Northern Ireland, as you can tell probably with my accent, but I then went to London and I took my fragrances with me and I just started telling people my stories. The stories behind the fragrances. I started telling people that my heart behind wanting to teach people about the fragrance world. I wanted to tell people how they could connect with their own story through the art of perfumery. So that gave me the drive and the passion. And I shied away really at the beginning from telling my own story, but I actually then, the more I told people, the real, true, authentic part of why I wanted to start the fragrance house, I felt doors were just opened. I met one person who would have said, oh, I have the right person for you to meet. And they introduced me to somebody else. And that's how the doors just began to open. It was just being very authentic, telling my story, having that passion and that vision, and really believing that I had something different that actually I believe led to open the doors.
But that's such a heartwarming human story, isn't it? Because I know your trauma was really, really significant. I mean, and indescribable in ways. And that surely must have made some people feel uncomfortable when you told them, or did you feel just that people welcomed you with open hearts?
Yeah, so I actually shied away from that whole part of trauma. So let me tell you a little bit about that. I had trauma when I was 12, and it was a sexual abuse. I had not told anybody about it until my late 20s. I had kept it to myself as a child. My life spiraled out of control after the age of 12, going into my teenage years. And I ended up living a very destructive life that was very damaging to me. And it wasn't until later years that I took the decision, the hard decision, to know that I need to deal with this trauma. I need to go and take the root out of this trauma. So I did that, and I did very long and hard and very painful counseling sessions. But for my memories, my scent, and every memory that I had prior to that still was blocked. I still couldn't remember that I had no childhood memories. So when I started to introduce people to the brand, and when I started creating the fragrances, and it really had that ability to transcend tragedy and to overcome, and actually, if I can use the word healing, that it had healing for me because it connected me. Well, that was a story that I thought people don't want to hear. People are going to think it's a negative story. They're not going to really want to relate to that. But once I actually started telling, people wanted to know, well, what was that trauma? And when I started to tell them, you really need to share that story. It's so authentic. You have overcome so much. You have actually turned something that was really bad in your life, and you've turned it around and put it into good. And then I became really comfortable. For years prior and after I'd gone through counseling, I actually did talk to young adults for many years. And so I was very open about the trauma, but I didn't think it should have been connected with the fragrance house. But actually, once I started to actually tell people, and they were astounded at how fragrance can really connect people, to their memories and to their past, it really gave me the confidence to actually, okay, I will open up. And I use the situation of the exact trauma. Obviously I have to read the room. I have to make sure that people are comfortable. Some people aren't in that place to be able to share or want to hear this sort of thing. But what I want people to know is that we can overcome, we can turn things that were once, negative into good. So really, no, there has been nobody that has said to me, no, you shouldn't share this story, or you should keep that quiet. So it's given me the confidence to be able to speak out more, and it's given me a passion to give people a voice to speak, because I once was that person who was silenced as a child, and I could not speak out. So I have this passion now through the Fragrance House to be able to share something really good, in my hope that I can share my fragrances, but also that I could do good for people in their own lives.
Well, Tonya, that's so inspiring, I think, for all of us in the room to be really aware of how important it is to align your purpose and your passion with your business. I know, you know, there's so much out there about personal brand and purpose-led businesses, but really you're evidence of that, and how important it is, and how much gravitas it holds, you know, to be able to really build your experiences and your personal journey and what you stand for into your brand. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I think it's amazing what you've done, and I know that everybody else in the room is going to be bouncing around with the spring in their step, which is exactly what we all need right now. I'm sure you all agree. You've also been self-funded through this whole journey, which, considering now that you are selling globally, that is amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about your decision to be self-funded, and if that's something you'll be continuing with, or you're looking at other options?
So being self-funded, because it started off as a hobby. I had no idea what really it contained and curtailed really to create a brand. So I didn't go in with it with the idea of, okay, I want it to be self-funded for a reason. I felt that I really wanted the brand to organically grow. I felt I wanted the brand to be able to grow naturally, and it would start to be able to sustain itself. So I never went in with the idea of, I'm not going to look for investors. I just thought, let's do this and let's see how it goes. And I actually have been astounded at how well that we have been received as a brand. And you know, I'm not a perfumer. I'm turning 50 this month. So when I started this, I was really a lot older in life. I didn't want to go back to school, but I wanted to work with a perfumer who would teach me and help me to work very, very let me work creatively to myself. So I create the fragrances myself from start to finish. And that to me was my passion. I used the art of perfumery to tell my story, so that I can it's very therapeutic. So every fragrance I have, there is a story attached to it. And so that was my passion. I just wanted to release these fragrances. I created them as my own nose. I didn't get any guidance whatsoever. The perfumer literally just balanced it at the end. So when I was releasing these fragrances, I loved them. They had really emotional connection to me, but I never actually thought there was something hugely special about them until people started to experience it. So the whole side of self-funding was that, okay, well, we'll release these fragrances and we'll just let it grow. But then, as we all, you know, if we are all founders of a business, there's money after money. There's the packaging, there's the book, everything there's just so much money involved. So I decided I wanted to remain self-funded as far as I could go. I wanted to put my money into it. I wanted to be completely in control of my, I suppose, where we're going and everything else. So I don't know whether we are at a stage now that we will be looking to be able to scale up a brand. If we want to scale and keep people interested, if we want to keep retailers interested with new product development, it is something that I have come to accept that I now need to do. But it's got to the stage where it's not that I am worried about giving somebody a little bit of control with me. I'm looking for a really strategic partner who will bring something amazing to the table, that I can continue to be creative. I mean, we spoke, Michelle, before about, we wear so many hats, don't we, when we start a brand, you know, from every aspect. And I only have a couple of girls that work full time for me. So you're doing so much yourself. And I just know because I want the brand and I have a vision for the brand, I know that we're going to have to look to have somebody to come in and help strategically and obviously financially also.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. And it sounds like you've really considered your position really well. I mean, one of the other questions I had, because I know that this is an area where other women in our community have struggled. How did you, I mean, did you get caught short ever or taken advantage of when you were looking for, packaging partners and design partners and things like that? I mean, how did you navigate all of that? Because I think when you come into an industry with little experience, you do open yourself up for people kind of taking advantage of you. Did that happen at all? Or?
Yeah, so I actually did everything myself from start to finish, from the packaging to the bottling. Everything was chosen by myself before I actually worked with anybody else or brought a consultant in. So I went, as probably we all have done, and gone to packaging shows and met different people. And to be honest, the first run of packaging, yes, I find that I paid an awful lot more, but also because when you're a niche brand, you're only looking at very small runs and you're only looking at very small amount of SKUs, so it is more expensive. And it's not really until you start to scale up in the business that you actually are able to, to reduce the costs, really. So yes, I did have a few little moments. But we were able to pull ourselves back. But yeah, I agree. It's really important, I think, to have people around you who know more. And it's one thing that I felt at the very outset. It was an industry I was entering that I had very little knowledge about. I had never worked in the beauty industry. I had never worked with retailers. I had no knowledge of how to build the brand at all. So I took the decision right from the outset. Well, from probably after about a year, when I was in the making of building the brand, I was introduced to a fantastic girl who is a consultant who used to work in retail at a high level. And that was the best investment that looking back at that early days, that I did. And I would highly recommend it, because I felt, oh gosh, because I own a brand, I need to know everything. How can I lead somebody and how can I lead people if you don't know the industry and you don't know what you're doing? But I quickly came to realize that actually it's okay not to know. And I used my relationships that I built, that have now turned into friendships, to really be a sponge and to take all that information in. I'm sure I asked the most silly of questions. You have to get used to the way people talk in the industry. There's so much that you don't know, when you're starting. But it was the best investment that I did, I think, by bringing somebody in. And I still maintain today that even when I continue to build the brand and I bring in other people, I want people to be smarter than me. I want people to know more than I do.
That's amazing. And there's been some beautiful comments in the chat box already. We've had one from Vanessa who says there's an expression in Ireland which she's sure that what's meant for you won't pass you by.
That is right. Absolutely. Yeah.
She loves how serendipity has opened up a whole new life after such a hideous, painful experience. And she's also said that the best businesses are built on passion, and she loves how your brand is literally all about your story, which is wonderful.
Thank you.
And there's some other comments here about how it takes a village, and collaboration is so important. And I think what you said about being okay with not knowing everything and surrounding yourself with good people, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that people growing a business face, is really kind of finding good talent and finding people you can trust. And sometimes it's a bit of trial and error, but I think with the passion that you exude, you would have attracted really amazing people. And it seems like you haven't had to knock on doors necessarily. They've been open for you. And I think that's truly wonderful. I wanted to ask you as well about, obviously, the last year has been an unprecedented time for business, and I know everyone's probably a little bit tired of talking about COVID, but how has it impacted your business? Because you've only just turned 2.
Yes.
Right? So you would have been a year in when this hit.
Yeah. So, it has and it hasn't affected us. I think for being a young brand, we'll look at it in the way of, we are in some amazing stores at the moment. We're in Harvey Nichols in Dublin and Manchester. We're in 4 stores of Fenwick. across the UK. We are in Fortnum and Mason. So we've really built very quickly fantastic retailers. I think for me, the problem is now trying to stay in them, because we are so small, and it's, as we said, self-funded, that there is new product development coming through, but we all know that that's what they want. They want to have this new product development. They want to see new things coming in. So I think for the COVID, it's really made the industry look at their power brands, I believe, and that, you know, the ones that are going to be really bringing people online. So I think for me, being an independent, smaller brand, that's been very difficult, because it's very hard to get your roots, darling, to get really into it, to really prove that you should be there. So I think for COVID, that was one of the things that I have felt. It's difficult for the stores. It's really difficult for everybody involved. So, but what I did do right from the outset was wanted to create an online presence. I always wanted to talk direct to the consumer. And I know being in these stores are amazing, and it is where we want to be. And we are moving across the globe into some wonderful retailers. But what I really wanted to do from the outset was I wanted to have a voice direct to my consumer. And I invested a lot in our website and trying to, how do you smell fragrance online? It's so difficult. So we have tried so many different ways of getting the fragrances into people's hands and being able to facilitate that. And so that has been something that was been really positive, because when COVID and first lockdown hit us, I had already established that. We've worked with some amazing collaborations with other brands that have been able to help us get the name out there also. But the whole idea is to get people trying the fragrances, connecting to the fragrances, and that's really difficult because we can't smell online.
And I guess as well, because I think often with fragrance, you when you're around other people, you ask them what they're wearing, and they become ambassadors for your brand, right? So when people aren't mixing, you're missing out on that whole personal refill, which is a much faster conversion. Where people go, oh, that smells amazing, I would love to try that, or I'm gonna try it for myself, kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I think that and you were telling me, am I right in thinking that your online sales have gone up by 700% in the last year?
Yeah, so in the last year, and obviously taking consideration being a new brand and getting a little bit more, people are starting to know us more, people are, coming to the website more. But in our first probably 2 months of the first lockdown, I think everybody panicked. We all panicked. We all kind of froze. People had to go off on furlough, and it was just a really hard time. And I really started to worry because we were such a young brand. But then there seemed to be this lipstick effect started in about a month and a half in. People were online, people weren't spending so much money, obviously they weren't going out, so people were looking for something that they could emotionally connect with, and they wanted something to make them feel good. And we all know fragrance is something that can change us in an instant. Fragrance can be uplifting, and it can take us back to a memory. As soon as we walk into a room and we have a smell, it's something that is so significant to our mental health that I believe, even with the testimony of how fragrance is with my own life, that actually that's what people wanted. And I do believe people today want to connect with a brand that is authentic and is real. One of the things about selling online is I try to teach people a little bit more about connecting with fragrance themselves, with the fragrance, rather than going with what other people say or about the notes that is in the fragrances. So in a sense, it's been quite good because we can actually get sampling out to people into their homes. They can try it on their skin. And what I want them to do is think, how does that make me feel? How does that make me, what is this? Does it have a memory? Does it bring me back to a time and a place? There's so many times, we were so busy before COVID, nobody had permission to stop and think and really take on board, how do I feel today? And I think this has been a really great time to be able to get people to stop and think, how does that make me feel? And how do I connect to that? So in a sense, it's taken a lot of work, it's taken a lot of trial and error, but through COVID, I think it's been given me the time to slow down and really look at what we have and try and adapt with that. But yeah, it hasn't really affected too much.
Yeah, no, well, that's remarkable and testament to your adaptability, Tonya, clearly, and that you had that, you know, the sampling thing in place already, which is you know, phenomenal for you, because I totally agree, and I think the results speak for themselves. So congratulations.
Thank you.
What about Brexit? Because I know that there are some some founders of product-based businesses in the room today. How has that impacted, or are you feeling it yet, or is it too soon?
Yes, well, we felt it, obviously, because I'm in Northern Ireland. We are probably the bother of everything, because there is the Northern Irish border in the middle of the sea. One good thing for Northern Ireland is we have remained in the European single market. So it's okay for us to get product out to Europe and globally, but it's very difficult for us to get things through the Irish border. So it has held up a lot of our manufacturing. We had planned last year to release candles. We had planned to release more fragrances, and that all has been put back months after months after months. And in a way, that also has an effect on our, you know, in our press as well, because there's nothing new to write about, and it really does have a knock-on effect, you know, completely with the brand. But with Brexit, I am hoping it's teething problems, but we have had some stock that has arrived to the sea, into the border area, and has been sent back. And we're now trying to bring it in through Dublin, and it's just crazy. So I do hope that it's teething problems, and I do hope that this will change. But who knows? Who knows?
Well, I mean, you kind of answered my next question, which was going to be, I mean, there's a Stories 1 and a Stories 2. Is the vision for there to be multiple fragrances?
Yeah, so I want to continue to speak through my fragrances. The whole idea with that is people will probably go, oh, that's her story, I can't relate to it. Some might relate to it, and that's absolutely fine. But the whole idea that people would actually stop and go, wow, that means so much to her. That's her story. What's my story? I want to think a wee bit more about my story. So the whole idea, as I said earlier, was giving people a voice, people knowing that they have a story and they should tell it well, because some of us don't even realize that there is a story within inside us. And I really want to continue to develop fragrances, which is my absolute passion, to tell my story through, because I know I have a story. It's important to me, but I want other people to then, when they experience the fragrances, to think about their own. So we do have I actually have a few other fragrances ready to go. We just have to wait for the whole production line, and obviously financially, you know, we need to have that finance and that coming through to be able to continue to build the brand. But we also created the hand and body range as well. And I worked alongside a chemist very closely, because I wanted to have a standalone body range that was actually going to transform your body and be good for your skin, rather than just having a base moisturizer or wash. So I've spent a lot of time with that, and that's something also that I want to adapt. I want to really give people a chance to experience the hand and body and see it as a standalone products, rather than just an addition to the fragrances. So there is lots of things. I have such vision of what I want to do, but I keep having to remind myself that I need to keep slowing down, because, you know, it's so difficult to be able to get this amount of product out.
No, I can imagine, and especially in the current environment. But I think if anyone can do it, you can.
I can see Amanda Kime. She's holding up her fragrance or her lotions and washes and shaking them.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, I'm glad you could join us, Amanda. All right, we've actually had a few more comments in the chat, so I think let's switch to that, and then I can ask the rest of my questions afterwards.
Sure.
So we've got someone from South Africa actually who's joined us, and she says, humble and modest to boot, success will surely follow Tonya on her strategic journey. And she said, Harvey Nicks and Fortnum's in just 2 years is simply incredible.
Oh, thank you.
Karen Cummings Palmer, who also has an amazing body brand, She said she had a Zoom meeting just yesterday with the beauty expert regarding 79 Lux, and she brought up Stories as one of her favorite cult brands. What a
Oh,
wonderfully compelling story. So that's amazing.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Let's see if there have been any other questions. There are lots of comments, which obviously I'll download the chat so that everyone's got access to that as well. Melinda says she wears perfume before all of her important Zoom pictures. So you would
same. Do you know, it is so important. People think, okay, are you going to really buy fragrance when you're not seeing anybody? But I have put my fragrance on every day. I actually put my makeup on every day also, because it's not even just because you're doing Zoom. It's just something that I do, and I love it for myself. And it just really picks you up. So putting on fragrance before Zoom meetings is a must, I believe.
Yeah, totally. Rosemary's asked if all of your perfumes smell the same on everyone, or do they change with the individual?
Yes, they change to the individual because of a couple of reasons. One being, our fragrance, scientifically proven that fragrance and our sense of smell, it's connected to the olfactory senses, and it's connected to the part of the brain here sitting at the front. It stores all our memories. So what actually happens when you smell something, you're actually connecting, if you know it or not, to memories or something that you've smelt in the past. So you always will get, I believe that every time you smell your fragrance, it will smell different to you, because it depends on season, it depends on your skin type, it depends on hormones, but it also depends on your memories. So just, if I can just share a little bit of a story of why I number my bottles, is for this very reason. Because when I was in Grasse, you actually blind test everything. So you sit in a perfumery, perfumer's organ, and you've got about 200 little bottles all sitting around you. You have every name turned away. So when you're smelling something, you don't know what you're smelling. And I don't know whether any of you have ever tried that, but it is really difficult, because we are so used to associating a name and so I went to Grasse with the idea that I didn't want vanilla, because I didn't like vanilla. But when I smelt vanilla and I didn't know it was vanilla and it was in its purest form, I loved it. And I thought, there's so many of us walk by fragrances because we see a name that we don't like, or it's something we think we don't like. And I wanted to remove those preconceptions, and I wanted people to be able to experiment without going, oh, I don't like that, or I don't like the look of the bottle, or, if somebody has grapefruit in it, for example, in a fragrance, it's going to smell completely different in another fragrance. They don't all smell the same. It depends what it's blended with. It depends. There's so many different aspects of. So going back to the question, yes, it will smell differently on each other, and it will smell differently, I believe, in different times of the year. So, for example, if you're given a fragrance for a gift, and you don't like it straight away, try it again in a couple of months, because actually changing of season could change that for you. And you might actually, it might grow on you, and it'll change. So yes, it does smell differently.
Vilma's asking what your favorite ingredients are to work with. What are your sort of favorite elements?
So one of the things that I do not do is go by trend to start off with. I remember when I was going to make my number 3 and number 4, I went to Paris. I still work with the same perfumer, and people were saying to me, oh, you need to look to see what the trend is and then create something that your consumer wants. But I don't work that way, because I work very artistically and creatively. So I wanted to go and just see what developed. So number 1 and number 2 just came automatically to my intuition, to my sense of smell. And I didn't know what I was working with. I didn't know what I was putting in the bottles, because I did everything from my nose. Everything's been self-taught, and everything goes what I feel like on the day. So to answer that question, I don't have a special note. I work on how I feel for that day. And what actually happens with me, I don't go with a story that I want to fill a perfume. My story always comes at the end of making the whole concoction. It just comes back to me in an instant, and I'm just taken right back to a memory. So I don't go with any idea. I do myself personally love woody fragrances. I love masculine fragrances as well, if you can say masculine, feminine, but I actually think that fragrance should never be put into masculine or feminine either. I think everybody should be able to have the ability to lift a fragrance whenever they want to. So I don't have a favorite note, and I just work with whatever happens. It's a bit like a canvas, isn't it? It's a bit like an opening story. You just try to develop something.
Well, and it sounds like you have a lot of fun doing it.
I do.
Yeah, which is so wonderful. I mean, you can see you're just glowing when you speak about the process, which is really inspiring. Julia is asking how you go about marketing your product, and if you work with a PR agency, is this something that you would advise investing in? And is it worth trying to get into stores and then invest in PR afterwards?
So I probably started out that I didn't even know what was right or wrong. And as I said to you before, I worked with a consultant right from the outset who really did open a lot of doors for me for just introducing to people in the industry. And I really just wanted to become a sponge and soak in people's information and expertise. So right from the outset, I was introduced to a PR, a girl, it's more like a consultant really, that would help you find the best PR. Now I've had to change a few times to get the right ones, but I do have a PR, but I also have an amazing girl who's here who actually works with me for VIP celebrity gifting as well. And I think all those avenues are so important, because you want people to love your product and you want people to really experience your product, but you don't want to pay somebody just to say that they love it for the sake of it. You just want to go on that process of getting people to introduce. So I definitely invested in PR. So PR and marketing were the two things that I really did right from the outset and have continued to do. Now we did take a lull over COVID, first lockdown. A lot of my relationships and partners, we all kind of just didn't work for a while because we didn't know what way it was going to go. But actually, it made me realize that we do still need somebody who's trying to talk about your brand and get that information out there. So I definitely would consider investing in PR and for people who love your brand. And that's important to me. It's not just somebody who knows the right people. The people I work with all are massive supporters of the brand and of me personally. So definitely it's finding the right one that suits you and suits the brand, if that makes sense.
Brilliant, thank you. Rosemary's asked where the best place is to wear your fragrance: neck, wrists, clothes, somewhere else?
Okay, so definitely we've all heard before about the pressure points that we need so our pressure points carry more heat. So obviously there's a lot more activity goes on in those areas. So definitely what I tell people, what I do personally is I use it like getting dressed every day. I put my fragrance on after a shower in the morning, and I do it before I get dressed. But why I do that is, and one of the other reasons that I actually did a hand and body range also, some people would say to me, oh, my fragrance doesn't last. And that can be down to your skin type, dry skin, and you definitely need moisture in your skin. So I always layer with the hand and body wash and lotion, because the molecules of the fragrances actually cling to your skin if you're well moisturized before you spray. So I definitely would say do it in the morning before you get dressed, put it on the pressure points, but also don't forget about your hair. So a lot of people think that fragrance damages your hair, and it actually doesn't. I always put it in the ends of my hair because again, the molecules cling to your hair and you have that beautiful scent lasting, not just coming from your pulse points, but also from your hair also.
Wow, that's amazing, because I actually always put my perfume behind mine on the back of my neck underneath my hair when I get dressed in the morning. And somebody told me you're not supposed to do that, but I don't know, for me it just feels like a natural place to put it. So that's really encouraging to hear.
One thing I would say though, and not a lot of people know this, is never rub your wrists together, or because the way we see in the adverts, people rub the wrists and then they do this. Because fragrances are created in such a way that the notes, the top notes and the heart notes and the back notes all need to come out in a certain way. So when you first spray your fragrance, your top notes will come through first of all. And then that will die down and dry out a little bit, and you'll get your heart notes. So if you've been wearing a fragrance for a few hours and somebody stops you and asks you what fragrance you're wearing, they're probably smelling the back notes. But if you spray it on your wrists and rub them together, you're actually dispersing the notes in the wrong way, and you're messing up the whole the whole plan of the fragrance. So never let it spray and let it dry naturally.
Okay, thank you. Great advice. Julia has asked a question about how you found someone to advise on your VIP and celebrity gifting. I know that, well, and we've got Amanda in the room. She said she'd love to hire someone.
Yeah. So I was introduced from the fabulous girl I was telling you about that I worked with from the outset, introduced me to Amanda Kime, who's here in the room. And that honestly, Amanda and I become friends. We still work together as you know, in business, but honestly, we could probably speak to each other every day in some way or another. She has a passion, and I actually don't look at her anymore, that guy employ her, not employ her, but pay for her services, because it's just become so natural. She wears the fragrances, she loves the fragrances, and I can't stress enough that it is so important to work with somebody who is going to just love your brand and want the best for you and can be honest with you. And that's what I have found with Amanda. And Amanda has built up a fabulous group of people that has trusted her over the years. She could probably sell herself better than I could, but I trust her impeccably. And I know that, you know, people trust her. She's built up such a reputation for herself, and absolutely the best thing that, you know, one of the things that I would not give away. You know, that it's very important to have her on the walk with us.
Oh, amazing. Well, and that's actually how we met as well, through Amanda. So Amanda introduced me to Tonya as well. So thank you, Amanda. Amanda, I don't know if you're taking on new clients at the moment, but maybe pop your email in the chat so that Julia can reach out to you if that's something might be.
If I can figure out how to do that. If not, I can give it to you.
Okay, otherwise, yeah, I can pass it on to Julia. Brilliant.
I'm sorry I was late on. I have a new puppy. I haven't slept for 4 nights and a tummy upset.
Oh.
Sleep deprivation is the worst.
Oh, I know.
Anyway.
Brilliant. Thank you. So does anyone have, we've got literally 2 minutes. If there are any last minute questions for Tonya, we can squeeze one more in if anyone wants to.
I have a question actually, Tonya. Candles. Because obviously we've been talking about that for a while now. When is it looking likely with candle and the next fragrance?
Okay, so it is testing is the problem at the moment. So I want to make the fragrances or the candles in exactly the same fragrances as Stories number 1 and number 2. So it has to go through a lot of testing to make sure it burns correctly. I absolutely adore fragrances, love fragrances, of course I love fragrances, love candles. And it has to burn really well. It has to have the scent coming through continually the whole time that you're burning. So that's what's holding us up. They are in the process of being tested, and they are coming, but can't give you a date. I need them to be perfect.
Absolutely.
We've got one last one here. Kim has asked Tonya, she'd love to know what the dream is for Stories. Where would you like to be in 3 to 5 years?
Oh, so the whole idea is that we would be known as a brand that not just supplies fabulous fragrances, but that we would be teaching people about fragrances. And that's very unique for a fragrance house. So there's not a lot of people there are teaching this stuff about how you can connect to your mental health and your stories and your memories, all that, everything I've spoke about today. But for the whole idea would be that I would be a very well-known fragrance house, that we would be well-known and well-respected. We would be across the globe. We want to actually not be oversaturate the industry. What I want is that we would have really significant key places in major cities, but I want to remain niche and unique as well. And I still want to be able to do things like this. I never want to get so busy that I can't be involved in things like this. It's important to me, and it's part of my whole walk of building the brand.
Brilliant. That's amazing, Tonya. So I think in ending off, I would love it if you could just share one piece of advice you would have for somebody who's considering starting a business, maybe running an established business but struggling right now, or someone who hates their job and is thinking of making a career change? What's the one piece of advice you'd give to a fellow woman in business?
I would say believe in yourself, believe that you can do it. If I can be a stay-at-home mom to 4 kids and at 45 take myself off to Grasse in the south of France and go through a journey like this, anybody can do it. I was not hugely academic at school. I had no prior knowledge of the industry whatsoever. And I believe if you have a passion and a vision, like vision is something that gives us the fire in our belly. It really does drive us. And I would say run with it. Get the right people around you that you can trust. Start talking about it, sharing your story with people, sharing your vision with people, and just do it. And do it organically. Don't think that you have to be here in 5 years. I would just do it for the moment and take it slowly and let the brand and the business and your idea grow organically.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. Please go and follow Stories across all of their social media channels. I'm sure that they will really, really value the engagement. We all need to be helping each other in that way right now. Tonya, thank you so much for giving us your time to be with us today and sharing your story so open-heartedly. You've had a huge impact on everyone in the room today, and I've really felt the difference, and you can see from all the comments how you've moved everyone here today with your story. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yeah, we look forward to chatting to you soon. I'll be sharing this recording with everyone in a follow-up email, as well as links to Stories and Tonya's social media handles, so you won't have to go sort of looking around for them. But we, and feel free to send back any feedback or comments that you'd like me to pass on to Tonya. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.